Hudson didn't sit on the PC Engine hardware and call it a day. Certainly NEC was pushing out every variation you could imagine of the hardware, it seemed, from a handheld with the PC Engine GT to a miniature laptop with the LT. And of course the various PC Engine Duo revisions that integrated the CD-ROM into one sleek package. And there was of course the very ill-fated Super Graphics that was the panicked release in 1989 that tanked about as hard as the Japanese stock market was about to. But if anything, it proved there was a great vitality in the PC Engine platform. The economic boom of the late 80s was fueled by rising land prices and the Nikkei index's meteoric rise, but this had come to a juddering halt. By 1992, the Japanese economy was in dire straits. The Nikkei index was a third of its peak, meaning companies' investments had been shattered, and land prices were beginning to go into reverse, leading to a large-scale defaulting on loans over the next decade. This was the beginning of a slump in the Japanese economy that it has arguably, even as of 2025, never really recovered from. Many will blame the dramatic economic collapse on the Plaza Accord of 1985, but it is a much more complex and nuanced chain of events than that treaty's outcome alone. Regardless of the shaky nature of the Japanese economy, Hudson was doing very well financially, and as a company with less of the corporate culture that was the hallmark of many a Japanese business, projects were seemingly freely worked on. Hudson opened their brand new research lab in Sapporo's Art Park, dubbing it the Hudson Central Research Lab. On the top of the building ran a miniature railway for company founder Yuji Kudo to enjoy his love of steam locomotion with a fully working scale model of his beloved C62 locomotive. Even in Hudson's Toyohira HQ, various ephemera relating to the founder's love of the C62 class of steam locomotive and even coin collection was proudly on display, and in the main boardroom, a model railway representing Niseko was built into the centre of the boardroom's table, complete with a model C62 train set. It would be easy to dub this as the excesses of the Japanese bubble economy, but largely Hudson had got its point of apparent excess through its own success, and it had money in the bank. In particular, Hokkaido's number one bank, the Hokkaido Takushoku Ginko, or Takugin as it was most commonly referred to, but we'll get to that bit later. 1992 had started well for Hudson. The PC Engine, though selling well in Japan, was now pretty distant to Nintendo's sales numbers, not just against the aging Famicom, but also the Super Famicom. Thankfully, from around 1990, Hudson had begun to diversify its target platforms once again, meaning their eggs were not all in one PC Engine-shaped basket. When it came to summing up whether the PC Engine and its associated CD-ROM platform had been a success, both Hiroshi Kudo of Hudson and Tomio Goto from NEC hedged their judgment. Hiroshi Kudo appeared very undecided on whether the PC Engine was a success or failure, lamenting in an interview that either way the PC Engine and or its successors were no longer on the market.
成功か失敗か、成功といえば成功ですよね。PC エンジンシリーズはトータルで450万台くらい売れて、ソフトも何千万本が売れたんだから。だけど、市場から姿が消してしまったし、今はもう作ってないわけですから。そういう意味では失敗したということもできるかもしれない。少なくとも NEC にとっては失敗だったかも。ハドソンとしては成功だったように思うけど、本当のことを言うと自分も成功したのか失敗だったのかよくわからないね。
Tomio Goto was a little bit more optimistic and accurate in his assessment because the PC Engine did pave the way towards the future of gaming via CD-ROM.
多くのメーカーに先駆けて資料に採用したことに対しては、私としてはそれなりの自負がある。
Shipments of the major consoles was reported in the December 1994 issue of Famitsu. The PC Engine had shipments totaling approximately 5.75 million across all models, a respectable figure and better than Sega's Mega Drive at 3.45 million, but both were eclipsed by Nintendo's Famicom at 18.7 million and the Super Famicom, which was at 13.4 million by that time. These figures are for Japan only.
PC エンジン DUR はハイコストパフォーマンスな CD ロムマシン。400以上のソフトが遊べる。遊ぶの大好き。もしもし
PC エンジン DUR 新発売
NEC。
東よ、世間は豪華にバカンスですよ。
行きたい？
新春この一本、おなじみ名人が南の島で大暴れ。スーパーファミコン第1弾。
高橋名人の
大冒険島
Bye Hudson。
Bye Hudson。
世界中で起きる数々の紛争。ボンバーマンはバトルはゲームの中だけで良いと考えます。地球に優しいスーパーボンバーマン。
In this era, Hudson was releasing a slew of classics across platforms. Many were only ever released in Japan, so some of these picks are less well known, though I've taken a broad slice of PC Engine, Super Famicom, Game Boy, and even Famicom that speak to Hudson Soft of the era. There are many I could have mentioned, such as Tengai Makyol 2, Manjimaru, the PC Engine's best-selling game and all-time classic, but there's only so much time, and in part 4 of this series, I will cover Hudson's games from late 1994 through to mid-1996. In 1992, Hudson released Takahashi Meijin's debut on the Super Famicom in Super Adventure Island, or Takahashi Meijin no Daiboukenjima, in January. With colourful large sprites, Hudson would replicate the look in the PC Engine's Takahashi Meijin no Shinboukenjima, or New Adventure Island, in June of the same year. But it was Super Adventure Island that caught the attention and was one of the first Super Nintendo games I personally played back in the early 90s. For those of you who haven't played an Adventure Island game and are not going into the whole Wonder Boy mess that's been discussed at length before, you play as the eponymous hero to once again rescue your girlfriend. The main gimmick being that you need to constantly consume fruit to stop an energy bar drain, which results in a lost life. Across 6 stages with boss fights, this is a colourful, short but enjoyable game with some of the best music fitting the era from Yuzo Koshiro. Did you know that Nectaris of the PC Engine, or Military Madness as you may know it, on the TurboGrafx 16 had a sequel? Nope, not the Japan-only Neo Nectaris from 1994, but a sequel on the Super Famicom? Well, it did, pretty much, in Earthlight. Whilst the scene has been changed to a cutesier anime dramatic style, as the packaging proudly proclaims, it was developed by the same team and carries over the captivating gameplay with some enhancements of Military Madness to the Super Famicom, in great style I would add as well. A really overlooked game on the platform that any fan of the PC Engine original will be certain to get hooked on. Playing through a range of scenarios, you need to deploy your units and achieve each mission's goals. It is one of the most accessible strategy games going, moving on a hex-based grid, and if you can overcome the Japanese language barrier, it is one of the system greats that no one really talks about. Nadia is one of Gainax's most beloved animes, well until Evangelion came along anyway. The anime has a bit of a slump in it, but it's still regarded as a classic, and Hudson developed this fantastic immersive visual novel or digital comic come adventure game that really pushed how good the Super CD-ROM platform was. With graphics and audio flourishes fitting of the anime, this really is worth a playthrough, if you understand Japanese that is. It's relatively short like many of these games tend to be, but it's a good time. The premise starts with you stranded on an island where you decide to explore the interior and discover a mysterious entrance to a ruin, which proves to be a bit too enticing to ignore. On entering, just as you may imagine, the door slams shut and you set out to find an exit. But before long, your whereabouts is discovered and you find that you are not alone in this ancient and mysterious ruin.
Nadia! どうしちゃったのさ とは呪われた力なり。ナディア、しっかりするんだ。誰？そこにいるのは。
Pang is a Mitchell property, but Hudson secured the rights to deliver a port earlier to the PC Engine as Pomping World, and they're back with this Game Boy port in 1993. Pang seems to be a bit divisive, as the mechanic for busting those bubbles requires a degree of skill that some struggle to master, and I can't confess to be brilliant at it myself. Across the number of worldwide themed stages, you need to pop the bubbles, dividing them until they vanish entirely, with a range of cool power-ups. Pure arcade action that is great on the go on your Game Boy. Bomberman 94 is the pinnacle of the series on the PC Engine, and also Hudson Soft's very last Hue card released in late 1993, featuring an extensively enhanced single-player campaign with multi-screen stages to tackle with rideables like minecarts and ruies that players could discover. These all had special abilities as well. The 5-player action via the multi-tap makes this one of the best multiplayer games for the system. The series would continue in earnest on the Super Famicom and into the 5th generation of 32-bit consoles as well, but this is the series' sayonara to the PC Engine bar a spin-off, and indeed the platforms Hudson built, as no PCFX version ever came about. Power Golf 2 Golfer is a golf game where you play golf as a golfer. Just to emphasise that, like the game's title reassures you, you won't in fact be a tennis player in a golf game. But what makes this game interesting is that it's one of the handful of games to support the obscure PC Engine mouse. For some reason in my gaming collection, early to mid-90s console games that support the mouse peripheral is a subset of games that, so long as they're decent enough, I will look out for on the Super Famicom, PlayStation, or of course on the PC Engine. Thankfully, Power Golf 2 is in some ways better than the original from 1989 with lots of courses, but it still isn't great. The display of the ball is a bit odd, cut into different views, and the wind still seems to play havoc like in the original. In addition, hitting the balls square in the middle can be tough. It mostly suffers from a lack of pace and snappiness in the gameplay, not helped by the CD-ROM loading times on original hardware, but somewhat better if you're on a flash-based system. Notably, this game features some grainy, albeit still present, FMV at the start. Quite impressive for the PC Engine, and something Hudson would make use of in 1995's Kusou Kagak Sekai Gulliver Boy. Honestly, the PC Engine lacks for a decent golf game, and this is the best it gets, and I'm not saying much by that either. You are much better off with Neo Turf Masters, Hot Shots Golf, or Powerful Golf. I don't usually like to repeat myself in these mini reviews, but this one deserves it. Many of you will know that this was the last commercially published title for the Famicom or NES in Japan in May of 1994, and given so much of Hudson's success came off the back of them being the Famicom's first third-party developer, it seems fitting that they got the chance to be its swan song. In many respects, this game reminds me of the later Wonder Boy 3 The Dragon's Trap, where specific items are needed to open up previously inaccessible areas to progress. Metroidvania, I guess, as most people commonly refer to the gameplay style these days, and that makes it so much better than your average run-to-the-right platformer. Peppered with mini-games and rideable dinos, Hudson sent the Famicom off with an exceptional game, fairly tough but also not too long a game, that thankfully was provided with a password system. Blood Gear is a curious game, flawed but interesting. If you enjoy a bit of mech action, this could be a good one to try. Developed by Weston, again using the company's name as written in Japanese for pronunciation, the Daguna Empire is attacking planets with their mechas known as powered gears, which are of course piloted by humans. At the start of the game, a lab is invaded by the Daguna forces. One of the scientists attempts to take on the invading forces but is woefully underpowered, but manages to survive long enough to get their own prototype powered gear to an apprentice called Aleph. Naturally, Aleph swears revenge. Blood Gear is a mixture of RPG and mech action game, somewhat like Exile and somewhat in the vein of the future Front Mission Gun Hazard, though less refined. In towns you can upgrade your kit, repair and get information, whilst in stages you will fight in a side-on action platforming view in your mech. I admit I have not made a lot of progress with this game, but I am definitely going to return to it as it has the trappings of being a good game. Just as the level of mastery of the PC Engine hardware was shown as the system matured, so was the mastery of the Super Famicom. Early on, the platform had a rough start, with ports of Gradius 3 having slowed down, mostly due to having so-called cheaper slow ROMs. But by 1995, the technical prowess on display on the platform was incredible, and Hagane from CA Productions, who had a very close relationship with Hudson, was a tour de force on this front. Hagane is the story of the Fuma and Koma clans, with the former possessing a holy grail known as the Amano Ikazuchi, or Heaven's Thunder. The Koma clan one night assails the Fuma clan and steals the Heaven's Thunder and defeats the clan, except for one ninja known as Hagane that survived despite his deep wounds. Suddenly, as if by contrived plot making, a mysterious old man with skills in cybertech, Momoichi, discovers Hagane and using only his surviving brain turns him into a cyborg ninja who vows revenge on the Black Dragons, a sect of the Koma clan. This is a truly tough but hugely fun action platformer which looks absolutely stunning. Packed with moves and special moves to boot, Hagane is a freewheeling action game that will take true patience and skill to make the most of, but damn is this a great game. I had an adventure picking up this game from a hardware store in Tawada City in Aomori over 5 years ago now, and though I have come to terms that I'll never own this game boxed and complete, I'm damn certain one day I want to beat Hagane.
Bye Hudson スーファミスーパー原人
原人ってめんこいんでないかい。あれあれあれ、そんなこともできんの。うわー、土地に輪をかけスーパーだべ。
7月にぞろに買わなきゃハドソン。
親だべや。
ナディア
不思議な島を舞台に永遠のヒロインナディアが巻き起こす胸ワクワクの大冒険デジタルコミック「不思議の海のナディア」。
我ら火の一族参上。謹んでご披露をつかまつる。ご存知天外魔境2。
広大なジパングに繰り広げられる奇想天外な大冒険絵巻。我が道に敵なし。
天外魔境2。3月26日参上。
Bye Hudson
Hudson Soft wasn't just a manufacturer of games, they also had a hand in creating peripherals. As mentioned in part 2 of this series, Hudson had teamed up with Mitsubishi Plastics to create the B card for the MSX platform, and naturally released an adapter for the MSX to read such game cards. But perhaps more famous were their controller peripherals. There are many I don't own, such as the original Joy-Card or the Joy-Card Super X for the MSX, or the iconic Famicom joystick, the HC62-3, that was the staple of the early Hudson Caravan contests. Later, Hudson would also release Nintendo 64 and Saturn controllers, but I don't own any of those. However, I have quite a few controllers for the Famicom, Super Famicom and PC Engine. The Joy-Card 2 takes the original Famicom style and elongates it a little bit, with the addition of turbo switches. It plugs into the front of the Famicom and works every bit as well as the original controllers, and is a wonderful complement when playing Star Soldier or similar. I love how Hudson didn't mess with the original Famicom aesthetic. The turbo switches give mere mortals like myself the opportunity to match Takahashi Meijin's 16-shot rapid-fire prowess, which makes all the difference. On the Super Famicom, Hudson had 2 key peripherals, the Super Multitap that plugged into the second controller port and added a whopping extra 4 ports for extreme multiplayer action. I don't have the original version because in 1994 Hudson released a revised Japan-only Super Multitap 2 because, well, look at it! Looking like Shirobon or White Bomberman, this functions identically to the original but comes in some fabulously whimsical packaging and a more compact design. With this, you can enjoy 4-player Super Bomberman on your Super Famicom or up to 5 players on Super Bomberman 3 or later. Later on, Hudson released a similar looking S-Bomb multitap for the Saturn to match their S-Bomb controllers, but I prefer the look of the Super Famicom multitap too. Hudson's follow-up to the Famicom Joy-Card 2 was naturally expected, and Hudson delivered this well-proportioned Super Famicom rapid-fire capable controller. With adjustable rapid-fire on the A, B, X and Y buttons, this is my favourite Super Famicom controller, apart from the original, though this one benefits from a much longer cord than Nintendo's Super Famicom controllers. It's a shame that the card that this later packaging used is thinner than the average box of breakfast cereal. For the PC Engine, although these are from NEC Home Electronics or NEC Avenue, given the PC Engine was a joint venture, some of Hudson's rapid-fire ideas naturally came to the platform's first-party controllers. By default in 1987, PC Engines came with the PIPD-001, a straightforward Famicom S 2-button controller. Also available on launch in 1987 was the PIPD-002 Turbo Pad, which added Joy-Card 2 style rapid-fire. With 1989's revised PC Engine core graphics and 1991's core graphics 2, matching controllers were made, the PIPD-6 and the PIPD-8 turbo pads that was supplied as standard with those consoles. There were also variations for the Super Graphics and later PC Engine Duo machines. In 1991, NEC Avenue released the Avenue Pad 3, sometimes called the Forgotten Worlds controller, as it was released at the same time. This controller adds a third face button in an ingenious way, allowing it to be either non-functional or to map the run or select button to it. This is great because some games make use of these buttons for their controls, but the rubberized nature of the position of the run/select buttons make them awkward to use, and this controller fixes that. There was also an Avenue 6 pad, which was great for fighting games, but with no ability to mimic the 3-button controller, it actually has less overall utility in my opinion than the Avenue 3 pad. And last, the PC Engine mouse, PIPD-10, released in late 1992, this ball mouse replicates the 2-button controller in full, even including the run and select buttons on the side of the mouse, with the 1 and 2 buttons naturally the standard left and right mouse buttons. Support for it though is vanishingly small, but at least Lemmings and Vast Steel 2 benefit from it, as well as Power Golf 2, which I mentioned in this episode's game showcase. It's a fairly unique design from an era where the console manufacturers suddenly produced mouse peripherals. The later PC FX mouse diverged from this unique design to use to what to my eyes looks like a Mitsumi OEM design that Sony also used for the PlayStation mouse. As the PC Engine star began to wane in 1994, Hudson and NEC hadn't been doing exactly nothing to develop towards a PC Engine replacement. Instead, they planned a machine to take part in the 5th generation console race. This generation was unlike anything before or since, which saw many old and new manufacturers play their hands in the games console market. Philips, Commodore, 3DO, Atari, Fujitsu were all part of this 5th generation race. But NEC and Hudson had their eyes set on the bigger players, Nintendo's nascent Project Reality, which would become the Nintendo 64, and of course Sega Saturn and Sony's PlayStation. So what did they have up their sleeves? The PC FX.